prepare to race onto the field. Everything is riding on this football game. So there's a special intensity, a special urgency. Here come the Volunteers. Wherever you listen throughout the world, it's football time in Tennessee.
What's up, guys? Dane Davis here. Shout out to Boogie Bentley Dauber and the Indie Kid over at Talkin VAWLS Network on YouTube. VAWLS fans, head over to their YouTube channel, Talkin VAWLS Network. Smash that like button and subscribe, baby. Go Big Orange.
Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Vols back on the practice field today. Not a whole lot of news coming out of that, just kind of business as usual as they get ready to transition into game prep mode. Coming up sooner rather than later. They are off tomorrow. They'll return to the practice field on Monday. Probably going to have a lot to talk about next week as Josh Heupel and both offensive and defensive coordinators will meet with the media next week. So probably should have a lot of news coming your way. I would imagine they're going to name a starting quarterback, but we'll see. Today I want to kind of continue talking about this Tennessee Volunteers defense. We all know how explosive the offense is. We all know what Josh Heupel's track record is. It's proven. It's proven at Central Florida. It's proven as offensive coordinator at Missouri. We know this football team is going to score points, but are they going to be able to step up and play defense? And when you talk about defense, you know, we've talked about getting Rodney Garner back and what that means for this defensive line. It all starts up front, but you've got to be clicking at all three levels, on the defensive line, at the linebacker position, and also in the secondary. So today we're going to talk about those defensive backs. We're going to talk about the addition of Willie Martinez on this coaching staff. But as always, do me a favor, drop down just below the video. Go ahead and click that thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you are new, welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. We're three dudes that love Tennessee athletics. We're not experts or insiders. We are fans just like you. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Click that bell for notifications. You won't miss out when we go live or when we drop new content. We are kicked into high gear. We're going live every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Hope you'll join us. Come hang out. The live streams are laid back and a lot of fun. We want you guys to be a part of it as much as we are. And then also, once the games get going, we will go live immediately following every game. But let's get into it. Let's talk about this article from RockyTopInsider.com written by Ryan Shumpert. I love Shumpert. He does good work, does a good job covering the baseball team as well as the football program. But the article here says Martinez pleased with development of secondary. Tennessee's pass defense was abysmal in 2020. Absolutely terrible. The Vols gave up 265 yards through the air per game, good for 11th in the SEC. Opposing quarterbacks completed 68.2% of their passes, second highest percentage of any SEC school. We all know the story, same old song and dance. All you had to do was run a slant, wide open for days. That's why that completion percentage so high. The article goes on to say the Vols secondary returns most of its main pieces from last season, and even the 2019 unit that ranked fourth statistically in the SEC. That's what's so interesting about this secondary. You know, you've got Derek Ansley as your defensive coordinator, secondary coach, supposedly a defensive back guru. You've got Jeremy Pruitt, who's supposed to be a defensive guru, but yet that defensive back unit struggled last season. Absolutely struggled. They've got experience. They've got experience. So it's what's missing? What's missing there? Says new and former Tennessee defensive backs coach Willie Martinez is trying to untap the potential. Good. That's a good word. Key word there, potential. That's for everything on the defense. That defensive line with Rodney Garner has potential. That linebacking unit has potential. Willie Martinez is trying to untap the potential of the most experienced group on Tennessee's roster. With the season opener versus Bowling Green 2 weeks away, Martinez has been pleased with this unit. The quote here from Coach Martinez says, from my standpoint, from the secondary standpoint, it's experience. I think having good leadership in the room, and I think if it's not player-driven, you've got no shot. That's something that was missing when we look at that 2020 team. On-field leadership. Says, I think they are doing a good job of that as a collective group on the back end. I think the whole defense is. You know, we saw Alontae Taylor spoke with the media during SEC media days. I think he is showing leadership. And look, if you don't buy into what your coaching staff is selling, then you're not going to be a leader. You're not going to care. And that, as much as we talked about playing a random game of dodgeball, we talk about food trucks, the thing Josh Heupel has done to build relationships, why it's important, earn the respect of your players. This entire football team seems like they are ready to go to war with Josh Heupel. But sometimes it's easier to do. It's easier to do during spring camp. It's easier to do during summer workouts, fall camp. What happens when you're in the trenches and the bullets start to fly and adversity comes your way? Are they going to buy in when things get tough? We'll see. We're going to find out in less than 2 weeks. Goes on to say, gone from last season's secondary as corner Bryce Thompson. Wish he would have stuck around. He really should have. Don't ever blame a kid for going to the NFL trying to make money for their family, but I think he could have greatly benefited from one more year. But hard to fault anybody, like I said, trying to provide for their family. Says a 3-year starter recorded 8 career interceptions and was one of Tennessee's most talented defensive players. Talks about Keyshawn Lawrence not getting a lot of snaps, which made no sense to me last year. No sense. Absolutely fantastic, talented freshman. Says he transferred to Oklahoma. And then that's the narrative. That's why I like Rocky Top Insider, and I like this article from Ryan Shumpert. I love VolQuest. I like guys that are inside this program, because all the national media wants to talk about are the guys that are gone. But the article here goes on to say Tennessee brought in help via the transfer portal, adding Alabama corner Brandon Turnage and Auburn defensive back Kamal Haddon. Martinez talked about those two, says they've been really good, both of them, as far as having the knowledge of how to execute our defense. That's been good. One is obviously ahead of the other, got more experience as far as standpoint of playing in the conference, and I would say that's Turnage. He says Kamal, even though he was at an SEC school this spring, that does help a little bit, but I've been really pleased. To be honest with you, they've been really competitive. Obviously, they're mature, they're older, and I love their skill set. Says Haddon and particularly Turnage seem likely to factor this fall, but don't seem to be likely starters. Something they don't mention in this article that Willie Martinez talked about when he met with the media was that Turnage has been playing, taking some snaps at the nickel position, which is very interesting, because the conversations we've been having on this channel talking about who's going to start at corner, because I think really legitimately you got 4 guys that could potentially be your top cornerbacks. And that's, you got Alontae Taylor, Warren Burrell, Kenneth George, and then Turnage. I think Turnage has the potential to start. So it's interesting that they are repping him some at nickel, and I wonder how that will play out as the season progresses. Sounds like everything is leaning towards probably Nico Slaughter being your number 2 guy at nickel. Theo Jackson likely to be your starter, but interesting to see what happens with Turnage there at the nickel position. It says at corner, Warren Burrell appears poised to earn a starting spot after playing snaps off the bench his first 2 seasons in Knoxville. Warren Burrell's got to be more consistent. And Ben McKee over at the Swain event also writes for VolQuest. He thinks Warren Burrell's going to give it a go this year. He thinks he's a guy that will step up on this defense, and I hope so. I hope he will. I like Warren Burrell. He's got to be more consistent. Willie Martinez says Warren was our best defensive back and most consistent. Well, there you go. I like it. Along with Theo Jackson in the springtime. They were here the entire spring, obviously summer, and he's just really added to that in camp. Warren has been very consistent. I like to hear that. Alontae Taylor is back after 3 seasons as a starter and is perhaps the most reliable player on the defense. If Taylor could up his play to another level in his senior season, it changes the outlook of the Vols secondary. Alontae Taylor is another guy that's just got to be more consistent. Got to be more consistent. I like where the article goes from here, because that's where my train of thought goes. It's you got to have it on all 3 levels to be successful. The article says it would be unfair to blame all of Tennessee's pass defense struggles last season on the corners or even the secondary as a whole. The Vols pass rush was mediocre, and their linebackers struggled mightily in the passing game. Mightily. That's an understatement. They were terrible. Absolutely horrible. It starts up front. But when you've got Rodney Garner working with that defensive line unit that struggled in the spring, that's the narrative. But they put the work in, and now they're taking it to that Tennessee offensive line. Glad to see things a little bit more balanced in the second scrimmage, but I like the potential of what Rodney Garner can do with that defensive line. So still, there are no guarantees Tennessee will be better at either of those spots this fall, especially at linebacker. That's the thing, guys, across the board. No guarantees. No guarantees. When I get excited about Rodney Garner or Willie Martinez or Jawan Mitchell coming in to replace Henry T, or Caleb Tremblay and Deshaun Terry and the potential that they have, there are no guarantees. I understand that. They got to prove it on the field of play, but there are things that excite me on both sides of the ball. Says it makes it important that Tennessee gets better play at safety, where the trio of Theo Jackson, Jalen McCullough, and Trayvon Flowers struggled last fall. All three are back this season and a year older. McCullough especially should benefit from an offseason of development. Seems poised to start alongside Flowers, who Martinez has been thrilled with. He says, we'll start off with Trayvon Flowers. Had a really good camp, very consistent, making a lot of plays. He's been the guy that's really the most consistent here in all practices. Again, talking today, the same thing. Tank has been solid. He's got to clean some stuff up, though. So a lot of high praise here from Willie Martinez about this defensive back unit. Says Jackson, Slaughter, and Turnage, among others, have worked at the nickel spot this fall. Look to shore up its middle of the field pass defense. That's interesting. That's interesting indeed. I want to see who steps up at that nickel position. But look, when we talk about a unit that struggled, a defense that was absolutely terrible, what do you like to hear? You like to hear that there's some competition there. There's some competition for these starting spots. It's not locked in. Sometimes you want it locked in and a guarantee. You want to know who you can count on, but you like guys pushing each other. I think there are some guys pushing each other at corner, some guys pushing each other at the nickel position, and you've even got some young guys, the Christian kid at safety. I don't expect him to be on the field as a true freshman, but he's pushing guys, and he has the sky's the limit for that kid. Ton of potential. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you glad to have Willie Martinez back? I think some people weren't too excited about it, but I think the more they hear from Martinez, the more they realize that Willie Martinez can develop talent, and that's something that seems to be the common thread across this coaching staff. They are teachers. So I'm excited to see what Willie Martinez can do with this defensive backs unit. That is going to wrap it up for this one. If you have not done so yet, please smash that thumbs up on the way out the door. Also, go check out the official merchandise of the Talkin Vols Network at bonfire.com/store/Talkin Vols. But this is the Talkin Vols Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.
How like we poets sat in our chains, soaking